Good morning, everyone. I am Riaz, currently working as project head in API engineering. Today, we are going to take a webinar on Prop 65 compliance and API's offering to comply with it. During the presentation, everyone except speakers will be muted. It is recorded and will be shared afterwards. There will be a survey and question answer session at the end if time permits. Speakers are myself and Mr. Pranav Joseph, who will show a live demo of our software solution for Prop 65. Before we start the Prop 65 topic, I would like to introduce API Engineering. We are a 21-year-old company. We have customers across the globe, US, Europe, and Asia Pacific regions. We are an ISO 9001, 27001, and TISAX certified company. We have 350 plus customers across the globe. As a company, we have 4 different kind of businesses. In compliance, we deal with a lot of environmental regulations for OEMs and sub-tier companies. In engineering, we have customers on mechanical product development using several CAD, CAM, CAE softwares. We source component and ship across different parts of the world. We also have IT services. In compliance, we have majorly 3 different models. One is compliance softwares developed by API. Customers can purchase the software. We also provide services where customer can give a task-based services and turnkey solutions. Turnkey is we take care of all the regulations that are applicable to their products, and we act as an extension of their in-house regulation team by managing all regulation applicable to their products. This is the agenda. Little bit about Prop 65, followed by how to comply with it, recent updates, and finally the demo. I hope all listeners get something thoughtful today by the end of this webinar. So let's come back to the webinar. What is Prop 65? I'll talk a little bit about Prop 65. So first of all, let's look into the basics. This is a simple sounding law amended in California state. It asks you to be generous to tell the consumers that your product contains a chemical, and due to that you are on risk, or if you enter a certain area, you are at risk of exposing to carcinogenic chemicals or chemicals which causes birth defect or impotency. For example, an airport, conference hall, or a shopping mall. A properly visible warning to the general public about the product or services or whatever it may be. If the person is exposing the consumers to the chemicals listed in the Prop 65, they have the legal responsibility to tell them that they are exposed. Also, the law prohibits discharging of listed chemicals into sources of drinking water. The warning has some specific requirements about its content, size, font, location, etc. So Prop 65 is not about the presence of substance, but about the exposure to the substance. In this definition, there are some unknown factors which requires more attention. For example, what are the hazardous substances? What are the products covered in this law? And how the warning should be displayed? Is there any exemptions? I'll talk about all these in subsequent slides. The chemicals list. What are Prop 65 list of chemicals? The current list is available online at OHIA website. It was updated. It was last updated on February 25, 2022. You can find the list in the website mentioned. Also, if you want to know deeper information about chemicals and the state agency updates, you can visit the same website. So what kind of chemicals are listed in Prop 65 list? It can be, the chemicals can be either natural or synthetic that are harmful. The chemicals may be additives or ingredients in pesticides, common household products, electronics, foods, drugs, dyes, etc. Or maybe byproduct of some chemical processes like exhaust from engines, industries, etc. The list gets updated at least once a year and it has over 900 chemicals since it was first published. It is very important to keep informed about the updates in the listed chemical to avoid unknowingly not displaying any warning for a newly listed chemicals. So I just want to remind you that APA has dedicated experts to catch up such updates, and newsletters are published frequently on the updates, not only on the Prop 65 but worldwide regulations. You can subscribe in our website if you want. So with over 900 chemicals, the list seems huge, but there are some chemicals to watch for or important among the list. I'll just talk few of them in upcoming slide. Now let's see how chemicals are added to the Prop 65 list. There are four methods by which the list gets updated. First one is LC, Labor Code Section 6382B1. The chemicals identified by WHO's International Agency for Research on Cancers. In second method, chemicals are added by SQE, states qualified experts to. So the state committee have designated certain organizations as authoritative bodies. If these bodies identifies any chemical as toxic, that also will be added to the list and known as AB, the third method. These authoritative bodies are the US Environmental Protection Agency, US EPA, US Food and Drug Administration, US FDA, National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, NIOSH, the National Toxicology Program of the US Department of Health and Human Services, and finally IARC. And the fourth method by which chemicals are added is FR, formally required to be labeled. If a state agency or federal government requires that a chemical to be labeled or identified as causing harm, then it will be added in the list in FR method. Most chemicals listed in this manner are prescription drugs that are required by the US FDA to contain warnings. So now, as I mentioned earlier, let's look into some important substances to note. Heavy metals like lead, cadmium, mercury, hexchrome, phthalates, BPA, etc. Lead is found in many consumer products, including some ceramic dishes, pottery, and some crystal glassware, some brass fittings, and lead acid batteries. Cadmium, cigarette and tobacco smoke is the most common way people are exposed to cadmium. Certain industrial processes such as metal coating and smelting can release cadmium into air. Chromium 6 can be ingested when it is present in drinking water and ingested by contact with soil or dust containing chromium 6. Mercury from seafood. Phthalates are used as plasticizers to make plastics more flexible. They are into everything that are very hard to avoid. BPA is used in plastic bottles, phone cases, etc. Acrylamide is formed during certain plant-based food, during cooking, or in high-temperature processing, such as roasted food and fried foods. Antimony trioxide can migrate into air and dust from some products made with flame retardant that use antimony trioxide. PET containers, PET containers, which may be made with antimony trioxide, can degrade at high temperatures. So these are some chemicals to note for, as these are used in variety of products, but this is not all. The list goes on. Safe harbor level. In Prop 65, the warning is required if the exposure poses risk. Exposure means the amount of time and quantity of the substance in contact with the subject. So OIHA has developed some safe harbor levels for majority of the listed chemicals. The businesses can refer this information to decide whether a warning is required or not. If the level of exposure is less than the safe harbor number of the substance, the warning is not required. So if the substance contained in the product is below these levels, you don't need to put your effort and time and spend time to money to print the warning. Safe harbor levels include two types of values: no significant risk levels, that is NSRLs, for cancer causing chemicals, and maximum allowable dosage levels, MADLs, for chemical causing reproductive toxicity. The values are in micrograms per day. Unlike some other regulations like REACH and GATSL, there the percentages are substance concentration is given in percentage. So here it is in, since Prop 65 is about exposure, it is given micrograms per day. The scope of products, yeah, the law states consumer products, which means any product you can think of. The scope is very wide and includes almost all the products, including the food we eat, apparels, textiles, gadgets, everyday essentials, even a toilet paper, and the list goes on. Maybe you look on either side of you now, and everything you see may require the warning. So no business is out of it, but it applies to only in California state. Any product sold outside California is out of the scope of this law. And the law came into effect in November 1986. So the products, it's not only applicable to products, the law applies to a place or an area too. You can find some examples in the slide, like amusement parks, shopping malls, hotels, restaurants, service stations, etc. So if there are chances that consumer is consumer may exposed to certain harmful chemicals listed in Prop 65, then the persons responsible for this area are required to show the warning. We have seen about what is Prop 65. Now, what do we need to do to what do we need to do to comply with the regulation? Let's look into that. We have seen in previous slides that the law requires the responsible person or business to show a warning if consumers are exposed to listed chemicals, and prohibition of release of the listed chemicals into the sources of drinking water. These are the two requirements on businesses. But there are some exemptions for both, and the responsible person is exempted from showing the warning if they are legally obliged to show a warning governed by the federal law. So instead of showing the warning in safe harbor method, you can use the federal law governed warning. The next exemption is the notice period. Since the listing of the particular chemical in Prop 65 list, you have 12 months of lead time to show the warning for the chemical. So it is important to keep informed about the updates in Prop 65 list and proactively initiate the action either to display the warning or to eliminate the substance. APA can support in this instance by following up with your suppliers and find out if the newly listed chemical is present in any of your products. So you can start that way, you can start displaying the warning or choose an alternate supplier. And the third exemption is related to the actual exposure of the chemical. This is the case when the businesses are challenged by an interested party, organization, or a consumer against the product, claiming that they are exposed to a chemical. However, if the business can show that the exposure cannot cause significant risk for the level of exposure, then it won't be considered as a breach. There are two exemptions applicable for both to show warning and discharge of chemicals. Businesses with less than 10 employees are exempted from this law, and any exposure below the safe harbor level is also exempted. And the exemption to the prohibition of chemical discharge are similar to the exemption stated for the warning. 12 months of lead time since the listing of chemicals, that means any discharge or release within a year is exempted. Significant amount of the discharged chemical will not enter any sources of drinking water if the discharge is in conformity with all other laws, regulations, and permit requirements. So, Prop 65 warnings can be given by a variety of methods depending on the types of exposure, such as consumer product, environmental, occupational, and the chemicals exposed and its toxicity. A warning given in the safe harbor method is said to be compliant with the regulation and safe for businesses. The safe harbor warning samples can be downloaded from P65 warnings website as given in the slide. And the warnings can be downloaded depending on the product or business type you are responsible. I'll show some examples in next slide, coming slide. Before that, let's look into the requirements of the safe harbor warnings. A warning is clear and reasonable if the warning complies with all applicable requirements of Article 6 of the regulation. I'll just elaborate and state some points which will make the warning compliant to the regulation. These are like the text used, the size of the text, the color of the text, the content, and the level of details given in the warning. The text should include one or more chemicals causing the exposure. If the product is exposing more than one chemical with two different toxicity, for example, cancer and reproductive harm, then the warning must list both chemicals in it and the corresponding toxicity. The examples will be shown in the next slide. Consumer product warning should be clearly visible. It has to be prominently displayed on a label and must be displayed in a conspicuous manner compared with other words, designs, or statements on the product. Also, a yellow triangular warning symbol with exclamation mark and the borders in black to be shown along with the word warning. The word warning must be in capital letters. That is how your warning should start. Otherwise, the warning will not be valid and compliant. If the product has some details such as consumer information printed in some other languages than English, then the warning also must be provided in that language. For internet purchases, you can provide the warning itself as explained, or a clearly visible marked hyperlink with the word warning on the product display page. Yeah, but that's not over, as in other cases, you also need to put the warning on your products. So it is a warning on both to be a valid warning under the law. The size of letters warning printed should not be less than the largest font size used for product details. And the minimum size allowed is 6-point type. But for environmental exposure warnings, it cannot be less than 72-point type. So in general, there will be a question arising whether am I required to use the safe harbor warning methods in content? The simple answer is no. But the problem with that is the business might have to defend the warning in legal proceedings if it were challenged by a public or private enforcer as not being clear and reasonable. So that act can be very expensive. So as I mentioned earlier, these are some examples of the warnings. The sample, it is always better to use such warnings warning formats as these are considered as safe harbor warnings. We can use either long form or short form of warning. In short form warning, it is required to show only the type of harm due to the chemical, for example, cancer, and the website address of the state agency where the consumer can get more information. So in short form, you can just show the warning triangle yellow triangle, then the word warning, then the toxicity, for example, cancer, followed by the website printed on the label. But in long form warning, the warning displays the chemical name, the toxicity, and the website address of Prop 65 warnings. So here in examples, you can see the warnings used at different locations. In the warning displayed for food, there is no need to show the yellow triangle. You can see that in the last example. Now we will see about very recent updates in Proposition 65. OIA has planned to list antimony trivalent compounds in the Prop 65 list. The substance is known to the state to cause cancer. OIA has determined the substance meets Labor Code listing mechanism based on a conclusion from IARC that the substance is probably carcinogenic to humans. Trivalent antimony compounds have a wide variety of uses, including in the production of flame retardants, plastics, lead acid batteries, lead alloys, glass, pigments, and paints. So what next? OIA has given opportunity to comment until 31st October 2022. The comments can be submitted as electronic submission, mail, or by hand delivery. And the details of comment submittal method can be accessed in the given link. You can see that in the slide. Since this is a ministerial listing, the comment should be on whether IARC has identified the specific chemical or substance as a human or animal carcinogen. In Labor Code listing mechanism, OIA cannot consider scientific arguments concerning the weight or quality of the evidence considered by IARC when it identified these chemicals and will not respond to such comments if they are submitted. So in the end, if the listing is finalized, businesses would require to provide or update existing warnings when exposing the consumer to antimony trivalent compounds. So it is high time to chase your suppliers if their product contain any antimony trivalent compounds. Another update is OIA has advanced its plan to list BPA as carcinogenic. BPA is currently listed as female reproductive toxicant and developmental effects on embryo. So a cancer listing would require businesses to modify the existing warnings to inform about the new hazard. As a part of the plan, they have organized a virtual meeting of CIC, Carcinogen Identification Committee, on December 14, 2022. CIC will consider listing of BPA in this meeting. The meeting will be webcasted in CAL EPA website. I have given the website address in this slide. The agenda and meeting instruction will be published in future notice before the meeting. The hazard identification document titled Evidence on the Carcinogenity of Bisphenol A is published by OHIA on September 30th, 2022 and is now available for public comment. The comments should be submitted by November 14, 2022. So what action has to be initiated to tackle this situation? Once the decision is finalized, the warnings on your product for BPA has to be updated to show cancer harm. In this case, you may not have to chase the suppliers as they would have already confirmed in the past about the presence of BPA in their products for female reproductive toxicant. So you would be already having the product details which contains BPA. The only update required is warning has to be updated. No need to go back to suppliers. But in other case, antimony trivalent compounds, this is entirely new compounds going to be listed. So at that time, we need to know the products, what products contains this substance. Okay, so we have seen in details about Prop 65 regulation and how to comply with it. Now to summarize, we will see some important points. The law applies if you sell the products in California. If your product contains any of the listed chemicals in a concentration that can cause any significant harm, then you are in obligation to comply with the law by displaying the warning. Any product sold outside the state is not under the obligation of the law. The Prop 65 doesn't prohibit the presence of any listed substances in the products. That means the law doesn't ask you to eliminate the substance, but it obliges you to inform the consumers that your product is dangerous. As talked a bit earlier, Prop 65 is a warnings law. By requiring the warning, it enables the consumers to make informed decisions about the exposure of the chemicals. So as long as the consumer has a warning about a chemical in a particular product, that is sufficient. And you are in compliance as long as your warning is correct. A Prop 65 warning doesn't mean the product will cause you harm. The businesses may have proactively shown the warning that it can cause cancer, but it never tells it will cause cancer. The product may contain a low level of listed chemical, for example, lead, and some parties may send violation notice to you, and you will have to defend and show that the product is in compliance, and that can be very expensive. So the best offense is a good defense, since the burden is on you to prove compliance when some parties send you the violation notice. And the penalties for violation is $2,500 per day for each violation per product listing. So if anyone is filing a complaint, you will have to bear the cost of the legal proceedings and the penalty of violation. Most importantly, the reputation of the company. Now let me talk about how APA can support the interested parties in achieving compliance. First of all, APA has dedicated compliance experts who has enormous experience in handling worldwide regulations. APA uses software interface called GreenCheck to manage Prop 65 compliance activity. In the software, compliance data and activity progress are stored. You will get access to view the live metrics of the progress and compliance report at any time. APA manage the compliance activity with minimum input from its customers. We just need the BOM or your list of products and supply details. We chase your suppliers, gather compliance data for all your products, and store it in APA software called GreenCheck, where you can see the activity progress and compliance reports. Suppose a customer asks you the Prop 65 compliance. You just need to input your customer part number in the system, and the system will show you whether the product is compliant or not. So based on that information, you can generate declaration letters. I'll hand over this webinar to my colleague, Mr. Pranav, who will show a live demo of the APA's regulatory compliance software, GreenCheck.
Thanks for the presentation, Trias. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the live demo session. I am Pranav Joseph here, and I have been traveling with AP Engineering for the past 3 years as a compliance engineer. So today I'll be giving you a live demo of APA's GreenCheck software tool and some of its unique features. So GreenCheck is an online software solution for multiple chemical regulations with dedicated modules. The regulations like REACH, SKIP, ROHS, Prop 65, and many other chemical regulations can be handled in this GreenCheck software. And we have a dedicated module for each and every regulations. So GreenCheck has a multiple user roles for the clients, for the compliance experts, and for the suppliers. The suppliers will be filling out the data, and uploading it to a green check, and our compliance experts would be validating the data and accepting or rejecting the given data. And finally, the clients can easily view or download the compliance reports just by entering the part numbers they require. So I have opened two windows here of green check. This is the custom dashboard of a supplier's module green check, and this one will be the client's interface of the module. As I said before, green check has dedicated modules for each and every complaints here. This dashboard contains all the required progress reports, like the number of parts that has been validated and not validated, and the supply level matrices. The main supply level matrices will let us to maintain the supply response level. We can see the responded suppliers, the partially responded suppliers, and the not responded suppliers. And we have the supply data collection levels and mainly the monthly wise reports. We can check the monthly wise reports of the suppliers part details for which month how many parts have been received by the suppliers, and the graph will show till the end of the project. And finally, the complaints report. This report will show all the complaint and the non-complaint parts, the insufficient data, and for the parts which is unknown and obsolete. These tabs can be easily modified based on the client's request. The modification can be done based on their request. So I'll just jump into the customer's survey. So these are the regulations for which the demo supplier has to be done. As this is for Prop 65, I'll do the survey for Prop 65. By clicking the Start Survey button, we'll get the survey list. This tab will contain the filters. We can filter easily by the dates which is requested on and the submitted dates. And also the response status can be filtered out, and again the approval status. Below you can see the parts which has to be surveyed. The survey can be done by two methods. We can do the survey by part by part or by bulk upload. This bulk upload will help us to save some time by uploading all the parts at once. We have a template here. Just by downloading a template, we can replace the part numbers and upload it to the system. Now I'll go into the part by part survey. After clicking the part, the survey of the particular part will open. After verifying the part name and the part number, we can start the surveying. Let's just say the mass of the part is 100 grams. The units are displayed here. These are the universally used units. Let's just say it is 100 grams, and we have a comment section for which the suppliers can convey some messages through clients or to the complaints experts. And below that, we have a Prop 65 versions for which we are submitting the data. These are the 5 latest updated Prop 65 version. By clicking on each of the Prop 65 versions, we'll get the respective list which the Prop 65 substance has been added on. We can easily export the list and use it as a reference while uploading data. So for now, I've selected the January 2020 version. After that, there's a question, does the part contains Prop 65 substance? And we have 5 different answers. Yes, the part contains the substance. No, the part doesn't contain the substance. And unknown, the testing is required to confirm the presence of the substance. And the last two, the part is unknown or the part is obsolete. So let's just consider this as this part contains a substance, Prop 65 substance. And here too, we have two options. If the part contains more many substances, we can just add all the substances by bulk upload. We also have a download template here. We can just download the template and add the substances and their CAS numbers and upload it here. Let's just add a substance here and look. In this list, we have the list of the CAS numbers for the selected Prop 65 version. After entering the CAS number, This tab will show the types of toxicity the substance has and the respective safe harbor limit. As Riaz mentioned before, the safe harbor limits are the exposure levels of the substance. If the safe harbor, the substance exposure limit is more than the safe harbor limit, the answer has to be yes for this question, and it is not, the answer is no. Let's just consider this substance is more than the safe harbor limit. And after adding all the units, we can save and close. And if there more than one substance there, we can save and add another substance. After saving the substance, the attached substance will reflect in the below table. And as we see, the safe harbor limit is exceeded by the substance concentration. The label has to be attached as per the complaints. So the question will be, do you have a label for this part? So the complaint, the supplier has to attach a label here. Here we have to attach the label and the supply declaration. A supply declaration is the declaration of conformity. The given data are correct. We have a sample declaration here by just replacing the names and the upload by entering the part details and filling out the other details. We can easily upload the supply declaration here. For now, I'll just upload a sample label and a prop 65 declaration. After adding all these, we just have to confirm the data that are accurate and we are responsible for the data. And after filling all these, we have to submit the data. After submitting the data, the uploaded data will be sent to the complaints experts interface, and we can easily validate and accept or reject the given data. And the given data will be automatically updated here in the matrices. And finally, the client can easily watch all kind of dashboards for each and every complaints here, and we can easily survey all the complaints.
So that is the end of the webinar. A survey shall be initiated before closing the webinar window. Kindly fill it to help us to improve. So now it's a question and answer session. Please ask questions. If the time permits, we will answer. Otherwise, we'll be replying the questions, replying the answers in emails. So we have a question. Okay, we have not received any further questions, so we are ending the webinar. Once again, thank you for attending the webinar, and please don't forget to reach us at below email address in this slide if you have any further questions. Thank you everyone for attending the webinar. Have a nice day.